On this edition of Jerusalem Dateline, Benjamin Netanyahu sets a deadline to finish negotiations and swear in a new government. Plus, an historian gives his take on Israel's future. And the country honors a fallen hero who united Jews and Christians. Plus, hear how Heidi Baker is standing strong in the face of terror in Mozambique. And we'll visit an ancient winery from the Byzantine era. All this and more on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. Benjamin Netanyahu set Wednesday, November 23rd as the deadline to form a new government as negotiations continue for ministerial positions in his coalition. The deadline raises the possibility of the religious Zionist party not being a part of his coalition because of disagreements with party chairman Bezalel Smotrich. Of particular interest are the ministries of Finance, Defense, and Interior, which will determine many aspects of government spending, national security, and laws regarding citizenship. The election of new leaders to Israel's government, including the controversial figure Itamar Ben-Gvir, has some American Jews concerned. We spoke to one historian who paints a hopeful picture of Israel's future.
Gil Troy is a professor and a columnist who does commentaries for the Jerusalem Post, like this latest one, The Israel We Know Still Lives, which is in reaction to a rather nasty column by the New York Times' Thomas Friedman. Gil, what did Friedman write about and why did it so upset you?
We just had our fifth election in 2.5 years. Because Israelis love democracy so much, we vote again and again and again. So there's a bit of a stalemate. And all of a sudden, because Thomas Friedman doesn't like these election results, which were democratic and reflected the people's will, and were extremely close, 4,000 votes would have shifted, he says, the Israel we know is gone. And why are you condemning a country so quickly? Why are you so quick to define a country, first of all, by a stalemate election, and secondly, by its politicians? And of course, it sent everybody into a tizzy because everybody always feels that Israel's on probation. Israel is not on probation. Israel is not going away. And we all know a country and our love of country is not defined by our politicians. We love our country. And we sometimes love our politicians, but we have to love our country despite our politicians quite frequently, and we love the country always.
What did you do about it? Like, what did you write about? I know that's some of what you wrote about, but, you know, what was kind of like your message to American Jews reading the Jerusalem Post and others around the world?
As a historian, I always say my favorite text is context. And so I said, first of all, you have to understand, part of the problem is the Israel you don't report is still there. And the Israel you don't report includes over 25 people who have been killed in terrorist attacks in 2022 alone. There have been 2,200 different attempts. And they're heartbreaking stories of young women, of young men, of older women, innocent people just living their lives being targeted by evil people who want to destroy peace. So first, you have to understand that part of the reason why some right-wingers who Thomas Friedman hates were elected was because Israelis were scared. And Israelis were worried. And I also said, wait a minute, they're talking about what is our relationship between the Jews and the Arabs here in Israel? Well, you can look at 4 different snapshots. You can look at 2, I said, which are really good and show tremendous progress, and 2 which show tension because life is complex. So the 2 things I wanted to say were, 1, it's more complicated, and 2, understand that the country isn't defined in this way by this one snap election.
Now, you wrote about that guys like Friedman and many American Jews know the names of the new far-right leaders here, like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, and yet there's names they don't know, and you listed 7. Why did you write about those 7 people?
So there are now 2 very charismatic, popular politicians on the right, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, who have been pushing very, very aggressively against the previous government and against Israeli Arab terrorists. And they're very careful to say not against Israeli Arabs, but against terrorists. And their politics is not to my taste. And I was very clear about that in the column. But nevertheless, I understand why some people voted for them out of fear. And I felt that it was really shocking that American Jews, who tend to say they know everything that's going on, know the names Smotrich, know the names Ben-Gvir, but they don't know the names of Noah Lazar, an 18-year-old woman who was stabbed to death just 20 minutes from here in Jerusalem. They don't know the story of Noam Raz, a 47-year-old father of 6, whose father, who heard 2 days after this election that one of his son's killers had been caught, and then the father died. So you also see that terrorism doesn't just target the individual, it targets the family and it targets the country. And once you understand that, you don't have to judge so much, and you can say, okay, life is complex, and maybe this election didn't work out as I wanted to, but Israel still lives, Israel's values still are important, and we still love the country because we're still a part of this broader democracy, this part of the club of democracies, which includes the United States, which includes Canada, which includes Great Britain, which includes Israel, and it's a very small club, and if we don't look out for one another, and if we don't support one another, where are we and who are we?
All right. Well, thank you so much, Gil Troy, sometimes commentator for the Jerusalem Post, who wrote this very effective column, The Israel We Know Still Lives.
Earlier this year, a wave of terror attacks swept through Israel when Palestinian terrorists killed 11 Israelis within days. One of the victims brought together both Jews and Christians. They called him the hero of Israel. 32-year-old Sergeant Amir Hori died last March when he confronted a terrorist in the predominantly ultra-Orthodox town of Bnei Brak.
He was a hero. He was a warrior, you know. He was a first responder, but the best we have.
His commander, Lieutenant Colonel Danny Haddad, explained how Hori confronted the terrorist who was in the middle of a deadly shooting spree.
He almost shoot other people, but when he saw the police officer, when he saw Amir, he turned around and shoot Amir. This is why other people saved. And the moment that happened, his friend that were with him killed the terrorist, and this is how he saved lives. Otherwise, if they were getting late, a few minutes more, the other people that were being killed. So this is how he saved life.
This week in a ceremony, the Christian Friends of Magen David Adom donated a motorcycle in Hori's memory. This motorcycle is a way to remember the life and legacy of Amir Khoury, found in the words of Jesus, who said, "Greater love hath no man than he lay down his life for his friends."
Through his giving his life for Orthodox Jewish people, the entire nation wept for him. Christian Friends of Magen David Adom is here to build bridges between Christians and Jews. And a lot of it is to educate and to show that we are God's children, all of us. And I felt that it was an honor for me to be able to meet this family and for us to donate a motorcycle to another first responder.
Thousands of Israelis came to Hori's funeral, including many ultra-Orthodox Jews.
Amir died giving his life to protect Orthodox Jews in a very contested area in Bnei Brak in Israel. He actually brought these Orthodox Jews who may be very suspicious of Christians to understand that there is love for the Orthodox Jew.
For the family, the anguish of losing their brother, son, and fiancé still leaves a void in their hearts.
It's very hard what's happened with me, with my family, because my brother is dead, and what's happened with my sisters, with me, with the life with my family.
First off, I want to say that Amir is an example to us all. He really did unite people. And even with all the pain and hardship that is with us every day, we don't forget this unity.
His death left Amir's fiancée, Shani Shahar, with a broken heart.
Wow, so much. My life, it's broken. Amir is my life.
But Hori's legacy within Israel lives on.
They saw him as a hero. Everyone in Israel knows who is Amir Khoury. They know this name because they know what he done. All the people in Bnei Brak and all the area are very grateful to him. All the police officer, the other police officer, want to be the example of Amir Khoury, want to be like him. We want to be like Mike, be like Amir.
Coming up, we talk with Heidi Baker about Iris Ministries and living on the front lines of revival and persecution in Mozambique. Heidi Baker, co-founder of Iris Ministries, lives in one of the most poorest and dangerous places on earth, Cabo Delgado in northern Mozambique. Since 2017, the Islamic group Al-Shabaab has led a deadly campaign there. I recently spoke with Heidi to hear what is going on in Mozambique and what message she feels the church needs to hear. One other place that most people know where you are is Mozambique. Tell us what's happening in Mozambique right now.
Well, we live in northern Mozambique. We've been in Mozambique since 95, but we've been the last 20 years in the north. So it's Cabo Delgado. And right now we're in, there's a major conflict going on where Al-Shabaab's there, and they're wanting Sharia law. I think it has a lot to do with gas and oil. It's a spiritual conflict as well, but we've never, ever seen anything like it as far as people coming to know Yeshua, coming to know Jesus. They're just running to him. So it's the hardest time we've ever been through, and one of the most glorious times at the same time.
Are you seeing signs and wonders as well?
We are, but the greatest sign that we're seeing is that people are coming to him like never before. We saw many people coming to know him through the years, 20 years in the northern region that used to be almost all people of another faith, but they came when deaf ears heard or blind eyes saw or people got up and ran. But now they're coming just because they're seeing what love looks like as we bring food, as we bring audio, solar Bibles in the form of New Testaments in their heart language. So they're seeing what love looks like in the midst of villages being burned, of people being tortured, brutalized, not just believers in Jesus, not just believers in Messiah, but anybody of the same faith that doesn't believe just like they do. Maybe they're not wearing the same clothes, or they can't recite a certain book in a certain language. They're also losing their lives. So there's this contrast going on, and people are just running to him.
Given what's going on there and the example of these saints, what is your message to the church?
Get ready for shaking. I know people would like to pray against shaking. And there's obviously, no one wants persecution, no one wants war, nobody wants terror, nobody wants famines and floods and hurricanes and cyclones. But we read the end of the book, like things are happening now and they're going to increase. We read this book, but we have to understand, we have to read the end of it. Like, we have to have faith in the midst of it. I feel like if I could say something to the church out there right now, to the congregations, to the believers, it's we're called to stand firm in the midst of the shaking. We can't live a lukewarm gospel. We can't live a flaky kind of life where I'll be fine as long as my rent's paid or my mortgage is paid or I have food to eat or at least water. No, we need this kind of passion that compels us to him, to adore him and to love him, and compels us to our neighbor, whether they're a believing neighbor or whether they've never heard the gospel. We need this radical love that causes our feet to stand firm. And I want to call people to hold on to the word, like study the word, eat it. This is our map here. This is our GPS, and Holy Spirit's going to guide and direct us. But this is like it is written.
Thanks, Heidi, for sharing your heart.
Bless you. It's good to be here. Pray for us too.
Will do.
Pray for Cabo Delgado.
A new documentary called Nefento goes deeper into how Iris Global Ministries is sharing the love of God in Mozambique. Find out how you can watch the film for free online at cbnnews.com. Up next, discovering the remains of a high-end winery in the middle of a Byzantine industrial area. A sprawling winemaking factory from the Byzantine era has been uncovered in southern Israel. Archaeologists say it's the largest known complex of its kind from that time period in the world.
Israeli archaeologists uncovered this huge winemaking complex in the coastal city of Yavne.
And this area was one of the major centers of wine growing and wine production for international trade.
The Israel Antiquities Authority began this excavation here in 2019. It's a Byzantine-era industrial zone, and it's one of the largest excavations the IAA has ever carried out.
Some 200 to 300 people work at the site daily. In use during the 5th and 6th centuries, the facility would have produced and marketed more than 500,000 gallons of wine each year.
It was certainly a prestigious wine. I mean, this was a wine that we know was presented during the coronations of Byzantine kings. Justin II had wine from this region, what was called Gazan wine, presented at his table during his coronations.
While the name comes from where the wine was exported, the major headline from this discovery is its size and scope.
And this is what is also revolutionary in the way that we have not one single wine press somewhere in a field, but we have 5 wine presses of huge size for mass production of wine, all together in a cluster, and they're all situated within a well-planned industrial estate. So we have roads that go between the wine presses. They mirror each other in their architectural design, and they all have the possibility of having a huge quantity of wine produced in them.
Excavation director Dr. John Seligman explained how it worked.
So the grape juice would have come from behind me over here, from the treading floor, flowed through this channel and out into this area in front of me. This is what we call a filtration pit. It's the place where the grape juice was separated from the skins. That then would flow through our pipes and to either side to the collection vats. There are 3 to 4 days of fermentation in the pits. So that's the 3 and 4 days of time when they would be treading and filling the other one. Keep swapping back and forth.
The grapes would have come from surrounding vineyards, and the site had kilns for making the jars.
They have like a torpedo shape, and that was something which was known to people. Just like you know what a cola bottle looks like without having the word cola written on it.
The jars then went to one of 4 huge warehouses for fermentation.
So the aging would have taken place over a relatively short period in these large warehouses, and then the wine would be taken from here to the port and then exported abroad or drunk here in the various sites around the city.
According to Seligman, wine was often the drink of choice in those days because of the poor quality of the drinking water. Excavations here are scheduled to continue for 2 years. The site was supposed to be paved as a highway, but now the city plans to build a bridge over it to make it accessible to tourists. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Yavne, Israel.
Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.